the biggest volume of inquiries coming into us so far.
Okay, Paul, give us some real-world examples then. What type of companies are you seeing implement this successfully, and how are they using it?
I think, as the gentleman have said, we're seeing a whole range for different reasons. So from the small, medium business, as they're trying to start up or expand their business, they're not specialists in technology. They don't want to hire people and invest all of the capital in new computer equipment. So to be able to go to a Brennan or an Optus and have not just the infrastructure but the services delivered, a voice system, an email system, a customer relationship system. So we're seeing a lot of demand at that end. And then at the high end, the large organisations, they're looking for how they can maximise their own internal technology operations and then look to a service provider for peak load management or disaster recovery or the ability to put their test and development infrastructure into that space. And the peak load side, they may have a requirement that once a month they need a lot more computing technology. In the old world, they'd have to buy all of that themselves and it sits there doing nothing. In this world, they can go to an Optus and say, hey, for one day we want to rent this capacity, and then after that you can go and sell it to somebody else.
Kevin, where are we seeing this type of tech go? I mean, before we move into bringing mobile devices in and all that side of what's already coming, as a technology, cloud computing, what are businesses going to be able to do with it in the future?
I think the big thing is that it becomes a very rapid provisioning of a new service. I think for a small business, to a medium business, they should really focus on software as a service and think about what are the applications that I need. Electronic mail is a really good example. Why are you running that in-house? That's a commodity function that could be well run by somebody else. And when you do that, when somebody else starts running it, then you can actually very rapidly provision people, drive your costs down, but also you can start connecting to new devices. So we recently moved over to Google Mail. And one of the great benefits we got was everybody's mobile phone. It now becomes attached to the email. There was no work to be done. So it really is about embracing a different style of computing that's quicker and easier to get your users online.
So what about security concerns, though? We do hear IT managers, particularly of smaller companies, where the IT manager is probably the MD, it's probably the guy that does the books. You know, he's having to do everything and isn't really feeling very safe about putting all of his data into a third-party resource that's not housed at his own office.
It's certainly a big concern. So one of the interesting things recently is more services being run in Australia, which I think makes some people happier. There's also the requirement to meet the Australian Privacy Act. So if it's an Australian organisation, you can be more comfortable about that. But there are some applications like email where, quite frankly, you shouldn't be sending sensitive information by email, and probably half your email is going outside the company anyway. The other thing I would say, and this was based on a government client I spoke to very recently, there's the belief that if we run it, maybe it's more secure. The truth of the matter is most organisations have a lot of problems around security anyway. They're not best practice or best process. So moving it out to a cloud provider might actually improve your security. I think it's more really people's concerns about a lack of control.
That's a very good point. Now, Phil, we'll move on to people bringing mobile devices. So we've got a huge boom in iPad sales. We've got the Telstra T-Touch tab that's come out this week. We've got so many different devices that are just flooding the market, and they're now a lot cheaper. So what are you seeing in terms of the demand for these mobile devices and to integrate them into the office?
Naturally, we're seeing huge demand for these devices. We expect the majority of small businesses to be using a smartphone in about 2 to 3 years' time, and certainly the majority of our sales will already be able to do that. So massive demand for that, and similarly also with the tablet devices as well, and the increased range we're seeing from those devices coming in Christmas. So that provides small businesses with the ability to access real-time data that they've never had before in their business, particularly when you actually couple it with the software as a service. So it allows them really to meet that ultimate insight before, which is I'm too time poor and I haven't got time to run it. Now you're getting that information organised in a systematic way and coming through for your business. So it really helps to be able to power them through, and I think that will be one of the core drivers that lifts what we call the cloud computing through into the mobile device.
Okay, Paul, we heard from Steve Herridge, your CTO, a little bit earlier about the fact that there will be a product available in a few weeks to bring into the office and actually make it a lot more easier to bring your mobile devices in. What are we seeing in terms of demand for that sort of product? Are people asking you for it now?
Yeah, we're seeing a tremendous amount of demand, and interestingly enough, it's being driven from the boardroom and the chief executive level, simply because they're coming into the office and asking their IT people, I want an iPad and I want it now, and I don't really care how you get it to me, but I want it. And so that's presenting a whole range of new challenges to IT, who have been used to an old model, which is I buy a desktop computer, I put everything on it, all the data, all the applications, and I try and lock that down. Now, with the proliferation of all of these devices, and most of us having multiple devices, the key is how do I take my business services and get that to my end users, regardless of which device that they happen to pick up in the format that's relevant, in a secure format that the business is happy with. And that's really where VMware's been focusing with our technology, is to be able to enable that to happen and integrate also with software as a service that may be coming in as well, where you don't actually own the application but need to secure access along with that. So it's a fundamental shift in how computers are used, but being driven in many cases from the chief executive.
So it's essentially about having access to your enterprise apps through your iPad and also your desktop as well.
And through your phone and through your laptop and through any device that may come in the future. Exactly.
So, Stephen, what are you hearing from your customers, particularly from the smaller end of town? Are they demanding this product now? Is it something that they're looking at? Or if they're not demanding it right now, do you think it's something they're going to have to adapt to pretty quickly?
Yeah, we haven't seen a big demand for it in the last 12 to 18 months, but there's a lot of discussion on it at the moment. You know, the ability to access your applications from any device, from anywhere, from any time, that's a big driver, and it's going to improve productivity, and I think people realise that. But it's a discussion point. The key drivers that we've experienced, we just did a survey on our existing cloud-based clients, and we've got about 100 of them live on the platform. And the biggest driver by far for all of them was the benefit to the pricing model. The fact that they can pay for it as they need it rather than the large capital outlay. So that's the biggest driver today, but I think the mobility piece is definitely going to have a big play in the future.
And do you think it's mostly about smartphones, or is it the demand for the tablet devices that's really coming through as well? And are you seeing them not rely as much on their desktop?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a combination of both. And I think the issues that a lot of the organisations face today around, well, how can I integrate to the existing applications? How can I access the shared drives that we have on in the office from an iPad or an iPhone? And that's where the challenges lie. If they went to a software as a service model now, then the devices fit very easily, but they've obviously got an existing investment that they need to cover as well. So that's where the challenges lie today.
So, Kevin, what do you think we're going to see over the next 12 months? Is this something that's going to take on very quickly? Do you think it's going to be more like sort of 3 to 5 years where people are getting that instant access, particularly from the SMB level right through to the enterprise sector?
Look, cloud computing's already taken off quite strongly, but you can go back about 10 years and see things like Salesforce. That's really a cloud product. So there's a lot of it being used. I think it's just become a little more top of mind in the last 12 months. Software as a service has been very broadly adopted across large and small organisations. I think what we are seeing now is the idea that maybe I don't need to run my own virtual machines. Maybe as a small organisation, rather than buying 3 or 4 servers and 2 or 3 people to run it and putting it into a cooled room, maybe I can hand it off to a third party. So I think it's infrastructure as a service that we're actually really seeing take off right now, and I think it will be successful, but it'll probably be a lot slower than many of the vendors would like to see.
That's all for this week's edition of Technology Behind Business. You can watch the show again on our website at skynewsbusiness.com.au. I'm Bridie Barry from the team here. Thanks for joining us.